Is it time? No, it's not time. Oh, yeah, it is. Well, hello and welcome to Hump Day. We have a great lesson in front of us. We are talking about discover the story of Tamar, and that comes from Genesis chapter 38. So make sure you get your Bible, get your pencil, get your paper, get your highlighter, all that kind of good stuff, and let us jump into this lesson. But before we start reading about Tamar and Judah, for your understanding, I want you to keep this in mind. Comes from Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8. So when you start wondering, how come God? I want you to remember this verse. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Now we need to remember that. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and verse 9. Keeping God's ways are not our ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. But here's the thing that we need to remember is that God is sovereign. He can do what he please, when he please, however he please, whenever he please. All right? So now let us look at Genesis chapter 38. And we're going to discover the story of Tamar. It reads, it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers. Oops, let's stop right there. See, I tell you all the time, when a verse or chapter, the reading starts out, it happened at that time, then you should ask yourself, what time? What time are we talking about? Well, which means that you need to go back to chapter 37. And in chapter 37 and before that, you will find that the sons of Jacob, they threw Joseph, they didn't like Joseph no way because he was a telltale and he loved to tell everything. They threw him in a well, dry well. Then they sold him into slavery. And they had planned on putting him in the well and then later on giving him out. But they discovered that some of them had gone on before them and had sold him into slavery. And now Joseph was on his way to Egypt. Don't forget, My ways are not your ways, said the Lord. And so this is his way. They didn't know it. But Joseph will tell them much later, what you did, you meant for evil. Woo! But God changed it to good. Now, so they went back and they put the blood on this coat of Joseph that he loved to parade around in. And they told Jacob that perhaps a wild beast had gotten him. And Jacob went into grieving for his son because that was his favorite son, remember. So it happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and settled near a certain Adonai, whose name was Harash. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shelah. He married her and went into her. She conceived and bore a son, and he named him I always thought, okay, Judah, did you forget what you was going to say? You said, But that's what his name was, E-R. Again she conceived and bore a son, whom she named Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. Now let me say this. Let me stop right here again. If you notice, the first child, when she conceived and bore a son, he named him. In other words, Judah named him Now, let me just stop and make it plain to you. The father of the family had two important responsibilities toward his children. The first one is that he gave permission for the son to marry a woman, a certain woman. It was his responsibility to pick her out. Now, if you remember, we'll jump a little bit ahead. You remember when Samson went to his parents and said, go get me that woman, I want to marry her. And they were upset. That's not the way it's done, folks, not in biblical times. Maybe we should change it to today, but a young man did not select who he wanted. But Judah has left the family and has gone into the country Canaan. And so we see now that Jacob did not give him permission to marry Tamar. Now, and the second thing that the father did, he named the children. Again, you remember the story of Zachariah and Elizabeth? Zachariah couldn't talk, and they said, it's Luke chapter 1, what is the child's name? And she said, John. They looked to Zachariah because they expect him to be Zach Jr. or something. The mother did not name the children. And so when he wrote down on a piece of paper, his name is John, they accepted it. But as you see here, she conceived and bore a son, and she named him Onan. Again, she bore a son, and she named him Shelah. So you can see that Judah is getting further away from what God had set down. Now, verse 6, Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord put him to death. Woo! Then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her. raise up offspring for your brother. See, in that day, and we got to remember, women didn't have a say-so. Women were like property, folks. You got to get that in your mind. Women did not have a say-so. Tamar did not have a say-so. When her father gave her to marry Judah, that was a done deal. Now, since her husband died, Judah says, okay, he goes to the second son, said, now you take her as your wife, and the first child, the first son, it'll be like it's your brother, even though your brother's dead. Why God killed him, the Bible doesn't say, other than he was wicked in the sight of the Lord. You got it? Okay. And the Lord put him to death. Judah didn't put him to death. The Lord put him to death. Now, so now we go and I want you to raise up offspring for your brother. But since Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, he spilled his semen on the ground whenever he went into his brother's wife, so that he would not give offspring to his brother. Notice it said offspring to his brother, not to the woman, but to the brother. The woman had no value. Her biggest value was to give him a son. What he did was displeasing. This is Onan. What he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. Woo! I tell you, God don't play. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. But what it is, he feared that he too would die like his brothers. See, in other words, he is putting it on Tamar. I don't know what you're doing, but you're killing my boys. And I'm not giving you the last son I got so that you can kill him. So he said, you go back to your father's house. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shelah's daughter, died. Judah's wife died. So when Judah's time of mourning was over, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearer. He and his friend Harah, the Adulamite. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she pulled off her widow's garments. And let me stop right here and say, the Bible never tells us how old Tamar was. When she married Judah, she could have been anywhere from 12 to 14 to 15. And I have to believe that she was somewhere in that range. So it's not inconceivable that she could be old enough to marry the third son, or I should say young enough to marry the third son without being an old woman. So now, when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she put off her widow's garments, put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance to Timnah, which is on the road to Timnah. She saw that Shelah was grown up, yet, yes, even then, she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, now she's sitting by the side of the road, and she's covered with veils. Judah did not know it was Tamar, his daughter-in-law. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she covered her face. he went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you." For he did not know she was his daughter-in-law. "You give me that you may come in to me." He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Only if you give me a pledge until you send it." Because she said, she know the girlfriend ain't no fool. She like, "I ain't giving up stuff and you may not send no kid." So she asked for a pledge. "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your card." She means the ring and your card and the staff that's in your hand. So he gave them to her, and then he went in to her, and she conceived by him. He went in and had sexual relations with her. She got pregnant. Then she got up, went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. She put the black stuff back on. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to recover the pledge from the woman, he could not find her. He asked the townspeople, "Where is the temple prostitute?" He still thinking she was a prostitute who sat by the wayside. But they said, "Hey, ain't no prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I have not found her." Moreover, the town people said, "No prostitute has been here." Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own. Otherwise, we will be laughed at." You know, everybody make me out of a joke. "You see, I sent this kid and you could not find her." Now listen to this. Woo, this is it. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of whoredom." And Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." As she was, see, he read to pass judgment now. He read it to judge and lay judgment on this woman. Said, "Bring her out, because see, she done messed up, and let her be burned." As she was brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "It was the owner of these who made me pregnant." And she said, "Take note, please, whose these are, the ring, the cord, and the staff." Then Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more in the right than I, since I did not give her my son Shelah, and he did not lie with her again." When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. Now, you know, we love to say there is, we got skeletons in our closet. Well, I'm going to tell you, woo, Jesus got some skeletons in his closet, and we now getting ready to look at one of them real quick. So now let's see if we're going to dive deep into the story of Tamar. Now, Tamar is a typical woman in ancient biblical times. And that means she needs to produce children to have value in society. And she cannot do this without a husband. I don't care what you say. She cannot do this without a husband. So she had to prove her value. She needed to have children, particularly a son. But guess what? She's got no husband. So Tamar is in a dilemma. And this dilemma could lead to her destitute. So her story is about perseverance. And the story begins by addressing the family drama of Judah's 3 sons. Now, first, he died before she could conceive. The text said he was wicked. That's all the text said. He was wicked, and God kills him. And that's why he died. Now, there are 2 purposes for this scripture, chapter 38, right in the middle of Joseph. And the first purpose is to show us how the tribe of Judah had its beginning. Now, we know this is the tribe that Jesus will come through, is the tribe of Judah. And so we need to see how the tribe begins. Now, take a look at this. But what we see more than anything, what I want you to see more than anything in this lesson is the grace and mercy of God. Woo! Think about that. I mean, when we look at this, we don't want to read it because it offends our good taste and we do anything we want to in this world. But it offends our good taste. And we can't understand why God would allow such a thing. But go back to Isaiah 55, verse 8. For your ways are not my ways, said the Lord. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so is my thoughts higher than your thoughts. So I'm not going to take time and try to explain God's action, because I told you already. Yeah, I could explain it. He's sovereign. I'll say it again. He can do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, whenever he wants. And who can stop him? It's like Isaiah says in, I think it's chapter 41. Have you not known? Have you not heard? He's God. So, we see that God is merciful to Judah, just like God is merciful to man. So for God, he nonetheless takes because the Bible said he was wicked in God's sight. But his behavior and his death affect Tamar's life. And we need to understand what we do or don't do or how we live affects somebody else's life. All right? We need to understand that. So Tamar was given to his brother for one purpose, to get pregnant. In this chapter, as in so many others, we have to see God's overriding grace and mercy. No, Judah didn't deserve it. But guess what? The mere definition of grace says that we don't deserve it. Grace is a gift that we don't deserve. Mercy is withholding what we do deserve. And the second point we want to see is we have to see why God had to move Israel out of Canaan down into Egypt. Now, so we're going to let's go back to diving into deep into the story of Tamar. And we see that died and Onan didn't comply. Now, why, other than being selfish and not wanting his brother to have the son or whatever his thoughts were, he did not comply with what his duties were. And so she was unable to have a son by him. Now, so he had 3 sons, 2 down, 2 are dead. Dead. So Judah said, wait a minute. I'm not getting ready to give this woman my 3rd son, because she dangerous. I don't know what she doing, but she dangerous. And so he pushed her aside and refuses to give up his 3rd son, Shelah. Now, he doesn't say you can't marry. He lies. He lies and says, well, you know, he too young right now. We'll wait till he gets a little bit older. So Tamar is stuck with no way of making a living, no place in society. Desperately needs to find a way out. Now, let me just connect that with Fannie Lou Hamer. Almost same name there, Fannie Lou Hamer. Did you know that when she was young, perhaps because I don't know Tamar's age at this time, I don't know whether Fannie Lou Hamer is the same age of Tamar or not. But because she had a cyst on her uterus, when she went to have surgery, the doctor, a white doctor, he decided to give her a hysterectomy. And she was young, my people. She couldn't have been, she was anywhere between 15 and 20 years old. And the doctor decided. And she and her husband wanted children. And so she found herself in the same situation that Tamar finds herself. She's stuck in a society with no place to go and desperately needs to find a way out. So, what happens following the death of Judah's wife? Tamar formulates a plan to ensure her survival and place in society. So what happens? Judah decides, when the time of mourning has passed for his wife, he's going up to Himnah, I believe, to shear the sheep. Tamar was told that he was going to do this. And so what did she do? She removed her widow's clothes. She dresses herself. Now, you got to get this. Because, see, you probably thinking, oh, yeah, she put on some bright colors, but she put on courage. She put on some courage. Because it takes some courage to do what she is about to do. And she creates a way out of no way for herself. And her plan is to get impregnated by her father-in-law. Now, of course, by today's standards, I don't know what standard we're using, that is considered wicked, immoral standards of today. And we do a little bit of anything and everything today, but we will criticize the Bible characters. But she's saying, if you listen to me, I can't wait around forever. My childbearing years are coming to an end. My father's not finding another suitor for me. I'm wearing widow clothes. So I make a choice that's not wicked by God's account, by your God's account, but rather heroic. And what does she do? She gets her father-in-law, she sits by the right side of the road. He thought she was a prostitute. The Bible didn't say that she called out to him or waved him to come over or any such thing. He saw her and said, woo. And then he went over there to her. Now, she had a veil on, so he couldn't see her face. Let me say that for Judah. He couldn't see her face. And he went over there and said, come here, let me go into you. You know, that means have sexual relations. And she said, what do I get? He said, I'll send you a kid. That means a little goat from the flock. And she said, how I know you're going to do that? You need to leave a pledge or something. So she got insignia and got his ring, his card, and his something else that she got now. Sometimes you get all caught up in all this. And that ring represents how his father-in-law's insignia. And she assumes the role as the leader of the tribe of Judah, and she continues its legacy, its lineage. Now, and after that, they find out that, okay, she is pregnant, and now notice how quickly he is to judge her. Notice how quickly he wants to judge her. Said, bring out. Oh, no. We gonna burn her. Who she thinks she is doing all this? No. See, and that's what we do. We get righteous. And that's how come it offends us that she sat by the side of the road, as we say, and seduced her father-in-law. But God said she's more righteous than he is. And God is the one that calls the shots here. You're not no big baller shot caller. God is. And he said she is more righteous. So now let's discuss the story of Tamar. We see, first of all, the problem of patience. And during the civil rights movement, African Americans were told if they were patient, polite, and hardworking, eventually they would receive equal rights in society. I can tell you, right here in the city of Louisville, at Armory Place on 5th Street, I heard Martin Luther King speak, and it resounded within me. He said, we are told all the time, wait. He said, we're tired of waitingism. We're tired of waiting for you to give us what is ours anyway. And so Martin Luther King declared, like Tamar, there are times we can't wait. Sometimes we can't wait for justice. You see, we have been waiting for justice for over 200 years, and we're not getting it. We are not getting justice. And if we can't wait for justice, if the system of oppression will never grant us freedom, we can't wait for justice, because we have seen now, we have waited for justice. We thought we had justice until George Floyd came along, Breonna Taylor came along, and some others, and we had buried our head in the sand of time. Have you ever been told to wait patiently for justice? If you did, how did you respond? After reading the story of Tamar, how would you respond today? Now, I know what you're thinking. Honey, I wouldn't be worried about that kid that wasn't of age yet. He too young anyway. What would you do? That's all I'm asking. What would you do? Do the right thing. And Judah acknowledges that Tamar was more righteous than he was. He admits he was in the wrong. Woo! Now that's a big move. I mean, the hardest thing for any of us, male or female, to do is to admit we are wrong. And this is a big move for Judah to speak truth even at the expense of embarrassment. Justice was more important than Tamar's sexual scheme. And she was praised rather than vilified. Because do you see what God did? God said, okay, I give you 2 sons. You had 2 husbands, I'll give you 2 sons. He gave her twins. And he said, I'm going to do even better than that. I'm going to give you a place in Christ's genealogy. You can check Matthew chapter 1 and you will find Tamar in Jesus' genealogy. I tell you, Jesus has got some skeletons in his closet. And the good news is that the gospel, the lineage of Jesus, includes a woman like Tamar. And she gives birth to twins. She's brave, she's courageous, and that leads to the way to the birth of Christ. Now here's what we've got to remember. In the midst of our mess, listen to me now. Woo, this is good. In the midst of our mess, God still has a message. And God's message in this mess is there is always a way for justice and salvation. And my sisters and brothers, there is a way for us to find peace and justice. Now, can you share the story of God, of God's justice, I should say, in a new way? How could you tell this story that shows God's justice in a new way? How can you tell this story instead of, I don't know why he would do something like that? Because remember, your ways are not my ways, said the Lord. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So where you think she ought to be stoned, God said no. If anything, and you know we pretty bad ourselves, but it's amazing how quickly we can come and expect God to do something, and I don't understand it. Well, God not calling for you to understand. God understood what Tamar was doing and why she did it. And guess what? He blessed her. Let us go forth and do the same. As we continue through the month of March, Women's Month, let us realize that God is God. And let me say to you, if you don't know the way, come join us at St. Stephen. All you got to do is email us. I tell you every week, if you want a new start, email us at newstart@ssclive.org, or you can call us 502-583-6798. Now, if you live out of town, that's okay too. Our pastor still, we've got what we call e-campus. And we still will, you still are a part of us. And so, we invite you to tune with us again next week when we are going to open up the closet of Jesus again. I'm telling you, he got some folks up in that closet, and we ought to be happy with it because we got skeletons in our closet, and we're going to discover the story of Rahab. So I want you to read Joshua 2, verses 1 through 21, and then go to Joshua 6, verses 22 through 25. Joshua 2, 1 through 21, and Joshua 6, 22 through 25. And discover the story. Now, Rahab is also in Jesus' genealogy, and you can go back and read that in Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1. I'm guarantee you. You see, Tamar, she was a sister-in-law, and she sat by the side of the road and seduced her father-in-law, Rahab. You will find, they say Rahab the harlot. Wherever you see Rahab, it's the harlot. But come back and join us next week when we will discover the story of Rahab. I'll see you next week when we will celebrate, continue to celebrate